Thanks for coming along and doing an interview with landlords.co.nz. It's been really interesting listening to you at the Property Investor Federation conference down here in Queenstown and hearing how everything you used to do, you don't do anymore.
Yeah.
The whole world of property investing has changed. Can you sort of outline a little bit about how strategies have changed for you?
Sure. Well, I'm started out as a buy and hold investor, but really ended up becoming a trader and looking for ways to generate lump sums of cash so that I could do more investing, and that's really where my strategy's headed. So I did a lot of assigning, lease options and double settlements with a long-term view of buy and hold, but I was using a lot of trading strategies, and I've taught a lot of them to create money so you could keep investing. And of course what's happened is that through a whole raft of things between Inland Revenue, Real Estate Agents Act and even the Financial Managers Act, effectively all of those strategies, virtually everything that I was doing on a day-to-day basis has been outlawed, for want of a better term. Some of that's still quite grey, legally, but so far everything is going against us as investors. So to answer your question about how has it changed, well, for me it was like, what do I do now? Unless I've got money for my next deposit, I really can't do any investing at a time of real opportunity. So I've had to start looking for alternatives, and whether that's been offshore or other things here.
So basically, like go through the strategies, trading's gone because of the work of the REAA, is that correct?
Yes, so trading, and particularly in terms of what you'd call double or contemporaneous settlement, is now effectively caught by the Real Estate Agents Act. Now, in theory, you could register as a real estate agent and then they don't care what you do, is what they would say. But in reality, as soon as you become a real estate agent, you then are bound by a whole new amount of legislation, which means that you can't trade. And then assignments, which was a lower risk way of trading, assigning contracts, is effectively caught as well, because the interpretation so far is that you're acting as a real estate agent, and there's already been a successful prosecution for that. And then lease options, which was fundamentally a trading strategy as well, is caught not by REAA but by Inland Revenue are interpreting a lease option contract as a hire purchase contract, and so it's creating GST issues. So it's like just this perfect storm in a bad way, all hitting us at the same time.
So the only real strategy now is cash flow investing?
Well, yeah, it's buy, as I said this morning, I've stood on stage many times and said whoever said cash flow is king lied, and I've repented of that, because in reality that is what we need to survive what's going on with depreciation changes and all of those things. So on the one hand, you could say, well, the only real strategy is buy and hold. That's not 100% true, but the only way that you can really trade now, as I was talking about earlier, is you could potentially purchase a property as long as you settle on it and then on-sell it, and that's the only thing that would appear to be not caught. That, of course, would preclude 90% of the 200,000 investors in New Zealand ever doing a trade.
And you're saying cash flow is king.
Is king, absolutely.
And you're also saying you've changed your view on debt.
Yes, significantly. I mean, I used to have a party every time I got another mortgage, because I came into this industry in 2003, 2004, when they were giving away mortgages and packets of Weet-Bix, and that was all about leverage. And what I've learned through the last 3 years is that the fine print is really important in loan contracts, and it's a cliche, but the banks give you an umbrella when the sun is shining and they take it away when it rains. And so I just learned the power of banks. You name it, I've had it happen. PLA notices and whatever. So I've realised, well, actually all of the power is with the banks, and you actually don't have control of your own business when you're highly leveraged. So I'm now putting my own loans on principal and interest where I can, and that's not the smartest way to reduce debt.
So it used to be interest only before?
Absolutely. I would say to people, if you buy a house now, if I buy a house for $250,000 and it's got $200,000 worth of debt on it, and my kids inherit it when I die and it's worth $1 million, they won't care about the $200,000 worth of debt. That was absolutely my position, because the interest only helped you not be so negatively geared. But I really think now that what we've learnt in the last 3 years, and who knows how long this so-called recession will last. It's closer to a depression some days. I think that the more you can focus on debt reduction, the more you're not going to have to worry. You know.
And you were talking about you never wanted to use a bank again as your goal?
Yeah, yes, yeah, and that is a genuine goal in the sense that if I can learn how to build my portfolio or resurrect it or expand it without needing debt, and then there are more ways to do that than one might think, then that is my goal. I will never again let a bank control my life. And that is a process, and I talked this morning about hearing the story of an Australian investor who's now worth, billions and doesn't have any debt. So, he did it, and so I've been figuring out how do I do it.
So that's your goal now?
Yes. I've still got a reasonable portfolio. I've had to sell some stock down. I'm doing a bit of stuff offshore, but my goal is to get debt free as fast as I can. And every time there's any increase in rent or there's any additional cash flow anywhere, I'm going to apply that to debt reduction. And I have to say, I'm not saying that's the smartest way to get the debt down, but it just means that I know every month I'm $8,000 less in debt, or whatever the number is.
And just finally, how all the people who sort of follow what you do, and you obviously have quite a big following out there. How are they accepting that change? Are they surprised?
Well, I've always been very upfront. I try to be as transparent as I can. I've always talked about the things that have gone wrong, and I always try and bring people, particularly in the last, say, 2 years, I've been trying to help people look for more cash flow opportunities. I think anything that if you become too, set in your ways, and the world changes, that's not a good place to be. And I take, I'm considered in some circles a kind of educator or a trainer of others, and I take that very seriously. So I think the best thing I can do for my clients and people on my list or whatever is to say, look, I got this wrong, or the world has changed, and it would be wrong of me to say we should keep doing this if it's not working.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that.